All right. Hey, guys. Well, I know it's been a while. So, a lot has happened since I last uploaded a video. So, I thought that I would kind of go over that and just have a conversation. So, I have some notes that I printed out here. So, if you hear pages flipping, I'm reading my notes. Because I just, like, I know my tendency to go on a tangent, and I know that's like some of you probably really love that, but some of you probably don't. So I kind of want to like funnel my thoughts here for a minute. Okay, so what going back to work after being a stay-at-home mom has taught me. So this is just my experience. Don't take it as like life advice. But a lot. It's taught me a lot. So nobody tells you how weird it is to become a completely different person twice. Just nobody says, oh, becoming a stay-at-home mom is really going to change you. And then nobody tells you that going back into the workforce is also going to change you. And I wasn't really prepared for that. And I don't think that it's a bad thing, but I don't know that it's a good thing either. So here are my thoughts. Let me give you some quick background information here. Okay, so I stayed at home with my son for about 15, 16 years. Initially, so he is 18, so I stayed home. I did not stay home with him initially. I went right back into the work world after I had him. So things were hard because daycare was super expensive. I've told this story before, but I was working and I got the end of the year printout from the daycare, and at the same time I got like my taxes, and I realized that I had paid the entire year my income just on daycare, and that didn't include like wear and tear on my car, the office clothes I needed to buy, lunches out, just the expenses that come with working that you just don't think about when you have to take your entire income and dump it into daycare. So, and I know this is like a very common thing that happens, right? It's the two income trap. So let me say my husband at the time was making like a very normal blue collar income. We made too much to qualify for any help at all, but not enough to actually get anywhere. Like we ended up leaving. We were living in South Florida at the time. We ended up moving further north into Florida because we just couldn't afford the prices in South Florida on his income alone. And frankly, we couldn't even really afford it on two incomes with me paying for daycare. So we moved further north in Florida to a more affordable area. And this was before Florida like skyrocketed in pricing. So I'm just like I'm going back and thinking about it, and we just lived a very hand to mouth sort of existence. There wasn't another option. So I made the decision then, well, my husband and I together made the decision that I was going to stay home until my son was school age. While we were doing that, a bunch of things just sort of happened. Looking back on it, I think it's all the hand of God, obviously, but one thing just after another, and I've told this story. This is how we got into homeschooling. I had one group of friends that was like homeschooling, living very frugally to make it happen. And I had another group of friends who were in the working world. They were two income sorts of families. They had nice houses, nice cars, nice things, had the vacations and whatnot. But like their marriages were falling apart. Their kids were like not very well behaved. I don't know. It just, this was not a knock on working moms, because I know that there are people who make it work, but for us, we just couldn't we couldn't make it work. Not for our marriage, not for our son. Like, we just couldn't make me working work. And I just kind of saw the differential between the two groups of my friends. And for us, the decision, it was just that we just had to homeschool. We had to figure it out, which meant years of living really far below our means. I mean, like, and far below our means being like we were eating on $50 a week for a family of 3. So it just, there were years where we just were under a mountain of debt because there wasn't another option. And when I say that I was staying at home this entire time, I was also working out of my house. I ran a couple different businesses. I took on side jobs. My husband took on side jobs. Wherever we could get extra income to make it work, we were doing that. We were always a one-vehicle family. We always lived in some, either a small rental or some type of crap hole apartment or something. So we were just making it work because the alternative was worse. So fast forward about maybe 10 years or so, and our finances just improved. My husband got raises, he got promotions, I got better at running businesses, and things just were less tight. So homeschooling just became like our default, and it was easier. It wasn't that we didn't have money trouble still, because we did, but we did eventually pay off all of the debt. We got completely out of debt in 2020. And I, at that point in time, made the conscious decision to go back to work full time for a short sprint, just so that we could clear the last of the debt and be in a really good position to build our house. So we had bought some land in I think maybe 2013, 2014, something like that. And then 2020 was kind of just the opportune moment for us to build a house. So we had been renting all the way up through there. And so in 2020, we paid off all the debt, including the land. And then we signed the contract to build our house. And then in 2021, our house was finished, and it just was one thing after another thing after another thing. The car, we've always been a one-car family. I think I've told this story before, where it just frugal, we had to scale way back, which was okay. We've been there before, not a big deal. But even at scaling way back and being as frugal as possible, it wasn't possible. Not with a mortgage. Now, it was different when we were renting, because we could usually find a cheaper place to live if we were really desperate. But this is our house, and we're going to live here forever. So that just had to happen. And then just the cost of everything in Florida became really hard to bear for a normal Florida person. We met so many people in the homeschool community that moved from other states. I'm going to say places like California and New York, what we call rich states or blue states, whatever. And they sold their properties there, and they came and they bought cash properties here, and they drove up the cost of living for our normal Floridian people. So, and I think that's probably true of every low cost of living state that has a desirable, has a desirability to move to. So I don't think Florida is the outlier. I think Texas probably is. I think normal Texans are probably experiencing the same sort of thing. Or probably did experience the same sort of thing when all the COVID crap happened. So anyways, I say all that to say that my very last video was talking about how I went back to work, and how I just we couldn't make frugal happen anymore. So in the last couple of years, I have worked a couple different jobs. And initially, I just took the very first job offer that I could get, which was working as an Amazon delivery driver in their trucks, which that's a whole thing. do not recommend. Do not recommend unless you really enjoy peeing in bottles. Like, do not recommend. So that was a thing. But I had always heard that if you have a job, it's easier to get a job. So just take the first job that comes along, suck it up, keep applying, and then like something better will come along. And that has always held true for me. So that's what I did. I took the job. I worked it for like 6 months until I could get in at a different place. And an opportunity came along to work at very famous Florida grocery store. Which I still work there actually, very part-time now. So, but when I quit Amazon, I took the job at the famous Florida grocery store and was working that full-time. I was not a full-time employee, but I was working full-time hours. That famous Florida grocery store, it's pretty difficult to get a full-time position. I'm sure there is some corporate incentive there not to hire full-time employees, but the opportunity eventually did come along for me to take a full-time position there, but the hours just were not going to work with the lifestyle that I had envisioned in the future. So I declined it and dropped down to truly part-time where I could set my own schedule. So that worked out well. I still work there. I enjoy my job. Very, very part-time. In the meantime, my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and between his diagnosis and death, it was like 3 months. It was very quick. My aunt then passed like a week after him of colon cancer, and then my grandma like 2 months after that of colon cancer as well. So it has just been a very hard year, and there's lots of other stuff going on as well, but I'm not really ready to talk about any of that right now. Not my marriage is great. That's like a YouTube thing, right? You start doing well in life and then you and your spouse just split because of whatever reasons. So there's just a lot happening. So my church fell apart. I loved my church. A lot happened there and it fell apart. And so I've been churchless since about the time that I started working. So that's been very difficult. Juggling 2 jobs has been very difficult. Trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, which sounds ridiculous because I'm in my early 40s, has been difficult. Like, I am aware that working at a grocery store in my 50s and 60s is not ideal. But for the foreseeable future, I do need to be working. There is a future in which I could probably cut back hours, but it's not right now. Our car did finally die. Our beloved 2013 Dodge Journey made it to 231,000 miles, and then it gave up the ghost. So we now have a car payment. Thankfully, it's not as much as the average American, which I think the average American is now paying like $750 a month for their car payment alone. But it's still expensive because used cars are expensive. And we needed a like new used car because we needed a car that could be very, very reliable. So just like things have happened, okay? So that fast forwards me to today, where I thought I would talk about like the challenges of getting back into the workforce, kind of the lessons that I've learned, and what's just happened since then. And also, like, if I could go back 2 or 3 years ago and give myself some advice, what would I tell myself as a 40-something trying to get back into the workforce? So I would stick to the same advice that take whatever work you can get, because the experience that you earned staying at home or running your own business or homeschooling doesn't count. I tried, like I did. I put it on the resume, and I was very upfront with anybody who would give me an interview. Like, here's what I've been doing for the last 15 years, because I'm not interested in lying on a resume, right? So, but it doesn't count. The skills that I learned as a homeschooler and as a housewife don't count in the working world. It doesn't matter that I can juggle 85 tasks at once, and that homeschooling and housewifery and running a domestic business taught me budgeting and scheduling and meal planning and problem solving and conflict resolution and research and project management and teaching and crisis management. None of it counts. And that's just like I don't know, like it's like a kind of a slap in the face, but also it made me kind of laugh, because it's like I got into the job at Amazon and immediately I became the number one driver for my delivery service provider. And I was running circles around people, quite literally half my age. And everybody's like, oh, have you done this before? And it's like, no, but it's not that hard. Like, you're driving a truck and throwing packages. It's really not that hard. And then the same thing at the famous Florida grocery store, right? I got the job. And the reason that I got that job is because I knew somebody who already worked there. It wasn't because I applied and got in. That store is actually infamously hard to get hired at. You have to know somebody. And you have to be willing to accept like crappy hours and hard physical work, which I was clearly I worked for Amazon, where you gotta be okay with being in a bottle. I was okay with accepting crappy hours and physical manual labor, because I needed the job, right? So I think that kind of the thing that the number one lesson that I learned is that I had a lot more skills than I realized going into those jobs, but that on paper they didn't count. But those skills made me a much better employee. Like to this day, I still can run absolute circles around my coworkers that are literally 20 and sometimes almost 30 years younger than me. And it's just a matter of maturity. It's a matter of like, okay, I know what to prioritize because I've been doing this for a while, right? Like within a couple of weeks of working at both jobs, I was already training new hires, which is bananas, but none of that counts on a resume. So I agree with the advice of take the job that comes along and just do it. And then that will become your new resume. Lesson 2. I don't know. I wish I had something like more optimistic to tell you about that. But I think lesson 2 would be being around people all day is exhausting. It's exhausting. And I'm a people person, but I have realized that like working in retail and working in service is exhausting. I have so much more respect. Not that I disrespected those people to begin with, because I didn't, but I just have so much more respect working in these fields for people who do this job, because it is just exhausting. You are constantly interrupted. It's nothing but small talk. It's customers, it's coworkers, it's management, it's noise, constant noise. You're never alone. You don't have time to think about like anything. And I guess I just forgot how mentally expensive people are, right? Because at home, my mental bank was being spent on my family, and that felt very worthwhile to me, which I think it is. It's incredibly worthwhile to spend what little mental bank you have on your family members, on your children, on your husband. Like, I think that's one of the highest callings. But that bank, when you are working outside of the home, is depleted by the time you get home. but it doesn't matter because it's not like you can come home and be a raging jerk to your family. You can't. So then you have to go into like mental debt to make it continue working at home, and you just get so far behind, you don't recover. And I don't know if this makes sense because I don't know if I'm articulating it well enough, but I just can't say how mentally taxing it is to carry on a full-time job outside of the house and still have your full-time job inside the house. And this is not a knock on like my husband or my family either, because my husband is incredibly helpful. He does laundry, he does dishes, he helps with all the chores. But there is something about being a mom and a wife, I think in particular, where you just carry more, and it's just how I'm hardwired. Maybe other women are not hardwired like this, but it's how I'm hardwired. And maybe God did that on purpose, which makes it sad when you can't be at home doing the thing that you're hardwired to do. I don't think it makes it right. I think it just makes it sad, right? Like, I don't think that I'm out here being like the exception to the norm. I think I'm just doing what I can do the best that I can do it, and just admitting that it's hard. Like, it's hard. I am mentally exhausted all the time, and it hasn't gotten any easier. So there's that. The third lesson that I have out of all of this is that the hit that I took to my confidence getting back into the working world really surprised me. I value competency probably to a fault, and I think that I'm one of those people where if you just give me a chance, I'm going to learn to be competent at whatever the job is, right? Because I want to do a good job, which means I got to be competent to do it. But starting over, being the new person, learning new systems, feeling slow, feeling like I don't understand technology, wondering if I had forgotten how to be anything other than a mom and a wife, was like a little mind-bending at first. And then I realized that I was not incapable, right? None of this is hard. I think you can start any new job and feel that sort of earth shift. And then once you're in it, you realize, wait, none of this is actually hard. It's just new skills, right? It's no different than me teaching myself how to make sourdough, or me teaching myself how to do new budgets, or me teaching myself how to shop frugally. It's just a different new set of skills. And I was just inexperienced. That's all it was. So, and then I think the surprising takeaway from that was that I started to really crave the competency, I'm trying to think of the word here. I guess, I don't know what the word would be. But like my managers and my coworkers saying, you're so good at this, or have you thought about trying to go for a promotion, or just like the praise and the acknowledgement that I got from being good at something was almost addictive. And it actually became a problem because I wasn't receiving that praise and that acknowledgement at home. And it started, I realized that I was catching myself being resentful towards my home, towards the people in my home, towards being a wife, being a mom, and never receiving the feedback that I didn't know I was craving until I started getting it. And part of, like, I think that's a heart problem, obviously, for me. I'm very much a words of affirmation person, and since I wasn't receiving that affirmation at home, but I definitely was receiving it at work, it caused me to kind of have to take a step back and say, wait, my priorities are really misaligned here, and I'm trying to seek validation and approval from managers and coworkers, which fed me on, a pride level, but it was causing problems at a heart level. So that was difficult. That was a difficult thing to have to work through. And to be honest, I don't know if I'm through it. I just don't know. Okay, so the fourth lesson that I have is that being at home wasn't doing nothing. Because when I wasn't at home, the nothing that I thought I was doing wasn't getting done. And so it still had to get done even when I wasn't home. So the things that nobody saw or acknowledged, right? The grocery shopping, the meal planning, the laundry, the appointments, the school, the holidays, the birthdays, the repairs, the bills, the emotional labor, running everyone's life, like being an executive assistant for every single person in the family. Nobody saw that. But once I stopped doing it, because I was busy doing that for other people, everybody kind of realized that they were real work, and I realized that it was real work. And I don't know if it helped my family see that, like, wow, this is actually hard or whatever, but it definitely brought out some interesting conversations. And I think that's a lesson there. My fifth lesson would be that working definitely gave me something back, and I touched on that after lesson 3, was that it gave me adult conversations again. It gave me learning. It gave me solving problems that weren't like, where are my shoes or what's for dinner, which, just, let's face it, those problems don't really seem like problems, but you're just doing them all day, every day, and they are problems, but they never go away. And in the working world, at least you get a new problem. I don't know, it could be even the same task, but it's a new problem. It gave me my own paycheck, which, I mean, it went into the family budget, so it wasn't my own paycheck, but there is something about doing work and receiving pay for it that is validating. And I think that it would just be a lie if I didn't acknowledge that. Not that I think that that's necessarily a good thing. I don't know. I'm being honest here. I don't know how I feel about it. Obviously, I like the idea of being rewarded with a paycheck for work that I've done, which is hard to get at home. So, but it gave me a lot of confidence back. It gave me a very different perspective on life. And it also, I think, fostered a lot of independence in me, which is both a good and a bad thing, and I'll explain that maybe in a different video. So, sixth lesson was that I definitely appreciate being at home more now than ever. I've been off work for a little bit for reasons that I'm not going to talk about right now. I'll have to do another video about that in the future. I've just taken a little time off work, and I've been having my slow mornings again, being able to get out and get out into the sun every morning, get some coffee, make home-cooked meals, which has not been a thing that's been happening for basically 2 years because I'm not at home. Just taking care of, like, the home chores, making bread, setting my own schedule. It definitely taught me to stop seeing being at home as being less than, because it's definitely not less than. It is a blessing if you're able to be at home. It just is. It's definitely something way more valuable than I understood. But I'm also accepting of the fact that I'm currently not in a life position where I can be at home. So when I am at home, it's just way more valuable. But I think my biggest surprise, or my biggest takeaway lesson from all of it, is that it taught me that I'm two different women. I am the stay-at-home mom and the wife and the homeschool mom, and I do all of that, but I'm also the working mom and the working wife, and I'm still balancing everything. And I just think, like, these are things that I don't know that a lot of people talk about. It's very hard. It's very hard to juggle all of it. And if I'm just being super frank here, I've just had to decide what's important and what's not important, and that has made some serious, I don't know, cuts in my life, because I just don't have the same time that I had before. I don't have time to volunteer anymore. I really don't have time to be involved in a church anymore. I don't have time to do Bible studies or book studies. I don't have time for a social life. I don't have time for anything. I have time to work and to sleep and to occasionally do things around the house, and that's it. And so I just think, like, if you're thinking about going back to work, or if you're wondering if getting back into the workforce is for you, that these are things that you should maybe ponder, because I think I jumped into it thinking that I was going to be superwoman and I was going to be able to juggle it all, because I always have been able to juggle it all. And that's just not, it's not the case. It's not real. You can't have it all. Actually, it's not possible to have it all. So I think, if I was able to go back and talk to myself 3 years ago when I was making the decision to whether or not I was going to try to go back to work, I would tell myself that I was definitely more capable of anything. I was capable of doing more than I thought I was capable of. It's going to be way harder than you think it's going to be. You think you're going to be able to juggle it all, and you're not. You're going to have to set down a whole lot of plates, because life is just going to be so much more chaotic. It will probably be more rewarding than you expect in some aspects. I think the validation and the affirmation that I get from being out in the working world is very rewarding to me, but I think that also presented new problems for me. And I wish I could tell myself that you just don't have to choose one identity forever, because life is very fluid and things change very quickly. I am still aiming to be back at home in some capacity, hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, but we'll see what happens, because life has a funny way of doing things that you just don't expect. So, I think I'm going to end this by asking you, dear viewer, have you gone back to work after staying at home, or have you quit working after being a working mom? Or are you thinking about it? I would really genuinely love to hear what surprised you the most about being on either side of that. Have you been a working mom who's quit to stay at home, and what surprised you the most about coming home? Or have you been a stay-at-home mom who had to go back into the workforce, and what surprised you the most about that? Because I think this maybe is a conversation that we genuinely don't have enough. I think that we've moved on past the mommy wars, where it's like, oh, working moms have it harder, or stay-at-home moms have it harder. I've been both, and there are genuinely hard pieces of both. But I'm just interested in what you think about it. So leave me a comment, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. And let me know what you think about this kind of unscripted, unedited format, because I don't have time to script or edit videos. So here we are. This is how they're going to be. So anyways, I love you guys. Be praying for me, please, and I'll be praying for you. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.